Good morning. I hope this is working. Who knows? I'll wait for a minute and see if anyone, if you're there, can you just click a like or I don't know what you can do, a comment or something.
Comment down below.
And then I know somebody's there.
How many people are doing
I don't know.
this?
Right, it's on now. Are you coming to help me?
Probably.
Right, you need to shut the door. Hey! Oh, some school people on.
Who? Who's on?
Some people, don't worry.
I don't know who they are.
No, well, you won't know everyone.
I'm not doing any of it. I'm not doing it, Mum.
Through my loudspeaker. Hi, Karen.
I'm not doing it.
My helper's gone already. Oh, my sister's on. Hello, Vicky. I'll just give it another minute or two. While you're waiting, you can turn your oven on to 180 degrees if it's fan assisted, 200 if it isn't fan assisted, about gas mark 6 if you're on a gas mark oven. Get that on, and also get yourself a baking tray and just dust it with a little bit of flour as well if you haven't got prepped for that. So I'll give you 30 seconds to get that sorted. Ingredients wise, I've already got everything weighed out this morning. Hopefully you have. I've got the plain flour, 400 grams, which I've also got my salt and bicarbonate of soda in there. I've got my spring onions chopped. If you're using red onions or normal white onions, they should just be either sliced or diced. If you don't want onions and you don't like them, don't put them in. Morning, Julie. Grated cheese. How much did I have of that? 125 grams, or crumbled cheese of some other type. Buttermilk, or your variation of that, 300 ml in total. So you could have done 200 grams of natural yogurt and then 100 millilitres of milk mixed together. And there's a reason for that, which I'll explain in a minute. And then final bit, if you've got any spare milk, just put a little bit in a glass or a dish and have a pastry brush to hand. I forgot to put that on the post earlier. It's just to brush the top before it goes into the oven. Right, we've got quite a few people on watching. This is good. Virtual classroom. I can't stay out the kitchen. As you've probably seen, I've been obsessed with sourdough. Oh, actually, I've woken my starter up this morning. Can you see in there? I don't know if you can. Quarantine now, she's still going strong. I'm feeding her, so I'm going to do something with her this weekend. Not sure yet, but she's living and breathing. Hang on, nearly ready. All right, Rachel. Okay, so soda bread uses plain flour. And it uses bicarbonate of soda. No other raising agent goes into it, and there's no eggs in this, there's no yeast in this. So the reason that we needed to have buttermilk or yogurt and milk is because we needed the acid to work with the alkali. So using bicarbonate of soda, we use it in things like gingerbread, so it helps things spread but won't make things rise. If we want to get a bit of a rise on it, then we need to combine the alkali, which is the bicarbonate of soda, and the acid, which is our yogurt and our milk, and then the two will work together and create a little bit of rise, but most importantly so that the texture is not too dense. So soda bread is a good old fashioned traditional Irish style bread when they didn't have yeast and the ingredients that we would need to make bread to hand, like the strong flour. This is what they would turn to instead, and it's also really quick. You haven't got to wait for the whole proving process like you do when you're using yeast. So in your bowl you have got 400 grams of plain flour. You could mix it up with wholemeal flour. I would tend to do 50-50 with white flour, so it's not too heavy and too dense. So bicarbonate of soda, your 1 teaspoon, your salt and your flour goes into your mixing bowl now. I did say on a post earlier, have a table knife or a palette knife. I just stir my ingredients together using that. That's what we teach the kids at school as well. It saves your hand getting quite so messy early on. So your spring onions, or alternative, whatever you're putting in there, if we put in about 3/4 of those into the bowl now, just reserve a few to sprinkle on the top before it goes into the oven. Oh, and I promised I'd say good morning to Eva, who's my niece. I know she's cooking with my sister. So morning, Eva, I'm missing you loads. And Heidi, because she might be there as well. I'm not sure if she's doing it, but I know Eva definitely was. So just mix the spring onions through the flour, and then do the same with the cheese. We want to reserve some for the top. So about 3/4 of it into the bowl. Reserve a bit for the top. Hopefully you can all see this, because I've actually got my phone propped up against my food blender sitting on a pile of cookery books. That's how high tech I am. My daughter lent me her phone thing stand with a clamp and all of that, but I couldn't actually work it out, so I've got it propped. Right, so in the bowl, flour, bicarbonate of soda, salt, spring onions and cheese. Cheese and onion just work so well together, I think. And spring onions at the minute are great because they're in season. Right, there we go. So mix together. Next job is to gradually add your liquid. Now, although we've measured it, I always say just pour it in gradually and just work out how much you think you're going to need, because if you chuck it all in and then it looks like a pile of slop, you're in trouble because you can't take it out. And we don't want to be adding more flour to it, because then it's just going to make the dish, the soda bread, denser and heavier, so it won't be very pleasant to eat. So make a well in the centre. For those of you that might have just hopped on, make sure your oven's on 180 degrees. If you've got a fan oven, 200. If you haven't got a fan oven, about gas mark 6. Make sure you've got a tray ready, sprinkled with a little bit of flour as well. Okay, so cheese, spring onions and all the other dry ingredients are in the bowl. Make a little well in the centre, and then gradually add your buttermilk or yoghurt and milk into it. So I've added about half. Just use the knife just to work it through. And you'll see it soaks it up quite quickly. Now you may find actually what you've got is not enough, and you might need to add another drop of milk at the end, but we'll see. So add a bit more. Once it starts to kind of come together and resembles more of a dough, you can then get your hand in there and bring it together to form a ball of dough. There we go. Add some more. You can see it's starting to come together, but it's still really dry. So I'll just keep working it through. And I'm going to tip the rest in because I know that I'm going to need that. And just work it through. If you don't like using a knife, you could use a palette knife. I tend to find wooden spoons, anything with dough just sticks to wooden spoons, so we would always kind of advise not to use those. Metal one, it's easier to get off. Right, once you get to the point where you've added it all, I would then use my hand. And I've always got some milk which I've reserved for the top anyway to brush, so I can add a little bit of that if I need to. Use your hand, and then you want to just bring it together to form a ball of dough. This takes a few minutes to get it together. If it's not sticking, then add a couple of drops of milk, and again work that through a little bit more. Ooh, flinging my onion around. Right, it's getting there. I'm going to need to add a little bit more milk into mine. Oh, I miss doing dough stuff at school with the pupils. It's great because the dough just gets everywhere in the kitchen. Every utensil, every bowl, every tap handle, you name it, there's dough at the end of the lesson. But they have great fun. If you haven't got into making a sourdough starter yet, I know there's loads of you that have been doing it, which is really good. There is a kind of step-by-step, there's a number of posts on this page that talks you through the sourdough starter process, but if anyone wants to give it a go, it's really easy because it's just flour and water. For those of you that can't get hold of yeast at the moment. Although I think it's becoming a bit more available again now in the supermarkets. Right, I had to add the milk that I'd reserved for glazing into this, and it's almost stuck together. Notice as well, when I do it, I tend to try and only use one hand so that my other hand isn't too covered in the dough. Right, when you get to the point where it has stuck together, you then get a dough that resembles something like that. That's what you're looking for. So it's not crumbly, slightly what we would say tacky, but not sticky. When you get to that point, if you've got a little bit extra flour to hand, just plain flour, just lightly sprinkle it on your work surface. When we're at school, I say not giant snowstorm, don't cover the table, just a little bit, otherwise it dries you, whatever dough. Same when you're working with pastry, it just kind of sucks all the moisture out, and then you get a dough or paste or biscuit mix, whatever you're doing, that is really dry and crumbly. So pop your dough onto the table, and then just, it's not really kneading, but just using your thumbs and sort of not quite the palm of your hand, just to bring it together into a slightly neater shape. Now if it's feeling sticky, just add a little bit more flour to the table rather than onto the dough. And you can always just dab your hands in the flour, that just will help it, stop it from sticking. Mine's okay, I'm just going to put a little bit down. And then what we want to do is to shape it into a round. Some people do squares, I'm going to do a round. Just get that a bit neater on the top. Try and get the top as smooth as you can without having any sort of large cracks in there. The large cracks can be at the bottom. Sit it that way and then just turn it into a nice neat ball. Once you've got the nice neat ball shape, you can then just sprinkle the top a little bit with flour. Just pat it out. And when you've done that, we are then going to finish it off, brush the top with milk. I just need to go and grab a little bit more because I use that. And put our remaining cheese and spring onions on the top. Okay, so hopefully everybody's got to that point. If you can, if you're not covered in dough and flour, give me a thumbs up if everyone is at that point. So you've got all your ingredients in there. We're now ready, we've shaped it. You've got a fairly smooth top to it. It's not stuck to the table like glue. And when you get to that point, yay, we got some thumbs up. You can then lift it onto your tray and we can do the finishing touches with it on the tray. So I'm just going to disappear it and grab some milk. My spring onions are so strong. Lovely. Okay, also, before we actually do the topping, traditionally you can just score, so you don't want to actually cut right through the dough, but just score a cross shape through the top of it. Just like that. Then take your milk brush it over the top. So when you want something to stick to a dough, like seeds, if you were doing like a seeded loaf or anything, always put your glaze on the top. So glaze can be egg, it can be milk wash, or it can just be water. Obviously water doesn't change the appearance when the dough is cooked, as well milk and egg will give you more of a golden finish. Egg obviously being the richest, but there's no point in cracking an egg when we're not using the rest of it. So milk is fine. So glaze the top, score the top, spring onions on the top. You don't have to do this bit, so if you're not keen on having like extra onion or you haven't got it in there, then just ignore this bit obviously. I'm just sprinkling it around, and then your cheese can go over the top. You could always add things like chopped ham, some nice bacon, fry it off before so that it's cooked already. Chorizo, anything like that would be really nice to adapt and flavour it up. One thing we do when we're teaching is always try and give alternatives. So you can show a basic recipe and then just talk about how you could modify it. Just gets you thinking outside the box a little bit. Right, cheese on top. And then our oven's preheated, so it's ready to go. And we're going to cook it for about 30 to 35 minutes. I mean, you know your ovens, so gauge it. But the idea is that it's nice and golden brown on top. And obviously underneath should have an even golden colour as well. So about 35 to 40 minutes. I'll finish up on here in a moment, and then in about half an hour when mine's come out the oven, I'll just pop back on and show you the finished product. And it'd be great for those of you that have gone through and made it if you can share some photos and things as well. Thank you to everyone who's shared all their sourdough loaf photos, and Jane, I know who's not on here this morning, but she made croissants as well, which looked absolutely amazing. Right, soda bread, cheese and onion soda bread, made, done, dusted, 20 minutes. We're going to put it into the oven, bake it for about half an hour, nice and golden on top, nice and golden underneath. If you haven't got a fan assisted oven, play it safe, put it in the middle, on the middle shelf, and then you might just need to turn it round halfway through cooking. If anyone's got any questions, just ping them up here or send me a message. I'm going to put this into the oven now. I'll say bye-bye. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for having a go if you have. And I think we'll do this next week. We had some requests for pizza, making like pizza dough. A few people have said some baked goods ideas, so if anyone's got any ideas, send them and I'll see what we can do. I'm making a cake today with parsnips, so I'll let you know how that one goes. My children are not thrilled about that, but I quite like the sound of it. Anyway, I'll see you soon. I'll be back on in half an hour and I'll show you the finished product. Good luck everyone.